Welcome to Decision 2020, the U.S. House of Representatives Candidate Forum. This is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates. Today, we turn our attention to the U.S. House of Representatives race in Michigan's 2nd Congressional District, where Republican incumbent U.S. Representative Bill Huizenga faces Democratic challenger Reverend Brian Berghoff, Libertarian Max Riekse, and Green Party candidate Jean-Michel Crevier. Taxpayer Party candidate Gerald Van Sickle has politely declined our invitation. We continue Decision 2020, the U.S. House of Representatives Candidate Forum for Michigan's 2nd Congressional District. Today's forum was recorded Tuesday, October 13th from the studios of the Meijer Public Broadcast Center at Grand Valley State University. Joining us now is Libertarian candidate, retired Colonel Max Riekse from Fruitport. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for hosting this.
Well, for those who are not aware of your political background and who you are, introduce yourself and explain why serving in Congress is important to you.
Okay, and if I cough, I don't have the Chinese, communist, socialist, democratic, anti-Trump virus. If I did, I could get over it, but the cough is from Vietnam from 50 years ago. I can't get rid of the darn thing. But I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army, 32 years, Vietnam War and Iraq War veteran, over 12 years active duty. I spent some time in Iceland, Germany, and South Korea. Started out as a private E1 and into my service 32 years later as Lieutenant Colonel. I also am a retired Michigan public school teacher, 23 years. K through 12, and I'm not endorsed by the liberal, socialist, pro-democratic MEA. Other than that, I have a son who's an Eagle Scout, and his late mother passed away due to cancer. So I think we need to spend less money on wars and more money on killing Alzheimer's disease and cancer. I think our Democratic nominee would appreciate our focus on curing Alzheimer's disease. Is that a little political plug there? So I paused. Okay.
It's your time. You can use it any way you like. The coronavirus pandemic is a public health crisis, killing more than 210,000 Americans this year. It's impacting the economy, education, and society at large. In Congress, what steps would you promote stemming the spread of the disease and supporting the economy and schools?
Well, first of all, I think Donald Trump is doing a great job. I mean, it's hard for President one man to wrap their heads around something like this. I think he's doing as best he can. And the baby-killing Democrats are doing the best they can to blame him. I think the Chinese communists knew about it, and it was one way to savage the United States economy because Trump was really doing great things with the economy. So I think a lot of it can be blamed by communist China's inaction to do something. WHO, which President Trump is vowed to defund, the head of that is a communist who's responsible for the death of tens of thousands of his fellow people in Ethiopia, and he's in bed with the communist Chinese. So, as president of Congress, I would help fast track a vaccine. Now, I am totally against wearing masks, making it mandatory. I think you should, but against it being mandatory. I think if a vaccine comes that a lot of people are comfortable with, they should take the vaccine, but not being mandated. We're freeborn Americans, and that's what libertarians are about. We believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights are focused on individual freedom. Joe Jorgensen is for that. I love Trump. I think he's great. I'll probably end up voting for him. But if you can't vote for Trump, and understand that, and you can't vote for sleepy, creepy, slow Joe, then vote for Joe Jorgensen, Libertarian. It's like punching a pillow. There's no pain involved.
The pandemic is impacting Americans' activities. What action should be taken ensuring that the presidential election is free, fair, and secure?
Well, I think we should have voting standards to the standards of Mexico. In Mexico, in order to vote, you need a photo ID, and it's their voter ID cards are really super good. It's equivalent of us having a voter ID that you can get on an airplane with. That's how good their voter IDs with. photo IDs for Mexico, for Mexicans to vote. And I think we should have our photo ID system here in the United States to Mexican standards. And also that no illegal or legal aliens should be able to vote. In California, millions of legal aliens are vote in our elections. And I think that's wrong. As an American citizen, they're canceling out my vote. And I think the pandemic is exasperating the whole issue. And it's real. Over 200,000 Americans have died. But at the same time, you have to remember that it's to the hospital's benefits and other healthcare providers to label somebody as dying from the Chinese communist flu because they get more money that way. So I don't think everybody who is labeled as dying of the Chinese communist flu virus is actually dying from that. If you're old, you're more vulnerable. But we have these Democratic governors like Grisham here in Michigan, in New York, sending old people to nursing homes because they come down with the virus, and that's like signing their death warrant. So I think Libertarian is for less government, lower taxes, and less nanny state.
The Affordable Care Act has been long debated. What is the correct course for providing Americans with health care? Do you believe people with pre-existing conditions should be protected?
I think that people with pre-existing conditions should be protected. President Trump is in favor of that. And I'm in favor of that. I'm also in favor of being able to keep one's children and on one's health insurance to age 25 or 26, as long as they're in college or maybe not in college. All right. The Affordable Care Act is really anti-American. It was forcing Americans to buy health insurance or be taxed or fined if they didn't. And I'm totally against that. U.S. Senate candidate John James doesn't favor doing that. And I think he would be a good choice since there's no Libertarian on the ballot for U.S. Senate. I think John James would be a good candidate to vote for. We need less government in our lives. And I think the virus could be help being eradicated or bring under control by just taking the politics out of it. And, right now the Democratic focus is to use the pandemic and the virus and the issues such as that to try and win elections. And I think that's wrong. I think the economy is number one. It, as Bill Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. And there's people hurting. There's waitresses and people, taxi cab drivers and people there that don't have a lot of political pull or push or influence that are being hurted by not being able to work. Giving people $1,000, $1,200 and saying, okay, we help you. That's a little help. They need to get back to work. And I think President Trump's focus on getting people back to work is focus number one. If there's a risk, but I think there's protocols that can be put in place that can make a workplace safer.
President Donald Trump has made it a point of renegotiating trade deals. Some of the negotiating tactics include enacting tariffs. In your opinion, is the overall plan working? Is there a job creation strategy or strategies that you endorse?
First of all, I think we have won the trade war with China. To the extent that I would like, President Donald Trump would like, I think we have a far way to go. And the communist Chinese are no friend of ours, don't like it one bit. And I think they are supporting Biden because of that. Tariffs, we've had tariffs in this country for over 150 years. Before we had the federal income tax, which I'm very much against, and as Libertarian Party is against, which helped finance all these endless wars for the neocon, Trotskyite, wealthy elite, the military industrial intelligence complex. We had tariffs, and that's how we raised a lot of money to finance the government. I think we need to have tariffs to protect American jobs and American workers. Free trade helps the wealthy elite, whether Democrats or Republicans. And Bill Clinton gave us NAFTA and shipped millions and millions of jobs overseas to Mexico, China, Vietnam, and elsewhere. I think we need to take care of Americans first. And how that works basically is if you put Americans to work with good paying manufacturing jobs, they pay taxes. If they're paying taxes, that helps finance the government.
In Congress, how would you address racial injustice and police brutality?
Well, they say we have systemic racism in this country. Well, slavery ended 150 years ago. 85% of the commercials on television have at least one black or Asian, mostly black, on there. So it's hard to say that there's racism there. We have a black running for Congress, for United States Senate, John James. He alludes to the fact, well, he says the fact that my ancestors picked cotton and were slaves. So he's done pretty good. There's thousands and thousands of black millionaires and black billionaires. We have a $600 million Afro-American museum on the mall, prime real estate, about 2 blocks from the Bible Institute, which is totally funded by the Hobby Lobby person. Yet the Afro-American museum was supported by taxpayers. Blacks are only 15% of the population. So the bulk of the Afro-American museum was supported by white taxpayers. And I'm not making a racial statement, it's a statement of fact. So, I don't think we have racism. Under Obama, racism bubbled to its head because, and I'll make a politically correct statement here, Obama wasn't born in this country. He was born in West Africa, in Kenya. His father was part of the Mau Mau anti-British, anti-colonial experience. He was raised in Indonesia. He wasn't born in Hawaii. He doesn't have any affinity for African Americans. Under Bill Clinton and also Biden, they passed laws that put more Black Americans and minorities in prison, in jail. And that's wrong. Trump, he doesn't get a lot of credit for this, got legislation passed that is going to send less Blacks and less minorities in prison for minor nonviolent drug offenses. And that's another reason I like the Libertarian Party, because you don't need to be putting people in prison for everything and anything. Smoking a weed or a flower shouldn't give you a record on your lifelong criminal record. And the war on drugs is a failure. We have spent billions and billions of dollars south of the border, and for what? Drugs are still coming into this country. We need to beef up the Border Patrol. We need to beat up customs and stop drugs from coming into this country. Anybody who, any Border Patrolman or a customs official who let these drugs knowingly come in should be sent to prison. We need to stop these drugs at the border. We can grow our own marijuana, and probably better stuff than it's safer stuff than they grow south of the border. So I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but I don't want to use up all the time because you got more questions.
Police brutality. How would you handle police brutality? You got a minute and a half.
Okay. Police brutality, I think, is well overblown. It takes president like George Floyd. Who is George Floyd? He's the icon of Black America now. Here was a career criminal. He spent time in prison and jail. He was on 2 kinds of drugs when they picked him up for passing a $20 phony bill. He was trying to get into a car under the influence of drugs. He was unsafe to be on the highway. And this brutal, horrible murder that they talk about, well, the cop had his hands in his pocket while he had his knees on his neck, and he was trained to do that. I mean, that was part of the training, to subdue a person by putting their knees on a neck. I wouldn't want that done. So that was bad training, but he was trained to do that. But meanwhile, he had his hands in his pocket all the time. He wasn't beating them. Do we have bad cops? Yes. But the majority of cops and the police are good people doing their job under circumstances that they're not greatly appreciated for.
From cyber interference in democratic elections to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, what defense and national security measures are necessary for dealing with emboldened world leaders and terrorists who are targeting the United States?
Well, I think this is a real problem. China, obviously, Russia, North Korea, to be certain, and Iran, they don't like us. So I think that it's necessary for us to deal with this. EMP is a very real, issue. That's the electric magnetic pulse. And that could fry our electrical grid, real easy. If you have propane, it runs by electricity. If you have natural gas, oil, all it takes electricity to start the furnace, so you could end up freezing to death if you run out of electricity. If you have natural gas, they said, well, we always have natural gas, but it's in the pipeline. It wasn't more than 2 years ago that Gresham closed down to tell people use less heat, natural gas, because the only thing that was in the pipeline because a substation got fried or something near Kalamazoo. So the EMP can fry the grid. The grid is vulnerable to cybersecurity because it's all hooked up to computers. And I think this is something that needs to be addressed. I think President Trump is looking at that and trying to do something about that. But just in normal course of winter, snow can be overextend on leaves and tree branches, break lines, and then my heat goes off, electricity goes off at least once or twice a winter. And then we have to get out blankets and sleeping bags. So so it's a really issue. And I think I answered most, but not all your questions. Maybe you refresh my memory there.
Or if you want, we can refresh or move on. If I refresh, we're talking about cyber interference in democratic elections and the proliferation of nuclear weapons.
Okay, proliferation of nuclear weapons. I like Donald Trump's emphasis, excuse me, about revamping and modernizing our nuclear weapons systems, because some of these systems, they go back to tubes. And if you know anything about computers and tubes, tube technology is really antiquated. And I think we need to have better equipment that is interfaced with our nuclear weapons so something doesn't go wrong. And as historically, there's been glitches in the system where it wasn't for humans, both Russian and Americans, saying, hey, something's wrong here. We don't need to press the button because we really don't have a bunch of missiles coming at us. And I think that has to be modernized. North Korea, we've been supporting North Korea through not Donald Trump, but Democrat Republicans before that, keeping them alive by oil subsidies, food supplies, which doesn't get to the average person, so they can build up their nuclear weapons capability. Iran, I really don't support war with Iran. It's the Middle East. The Middle East is always going to be a problem. Israel has 400 to 500 nuclear weapons and it means to deliver them. So, I think Israel can handle itself. We don't need to get involved in a war for their interest because they can take care of themselves. They can make Iran toast if they wanted to. And I don't think the Iranians are that stupid. They're going to start a war with Israel. We need to pull back out of Iran. We need to pull back out of Afghanistan. And you have to look at Afghanistan. Not one Afghani was implicated in the 9/11. Not one. So why are we in Afghanistan? I'm no fan of, I think, Moore, the documentary, left-wing liberal Moore, but I went and seen, I think, one where he had something on Afghanistan. We were in Afghanistan for the wrong reasons. And the Afghanistans kicked out the British, and the British were brutal. They kicked out the Russians, and the Russians were more brutal. And, when we finally leave Afghanistan, nothing will change. They don't get along with the people in the next valley with them. It speaks a little different dialect. They don't like each other. Sorry, we can't do anything about the women, but, they lose a great resource if they don't bring their women into their society, let them read, write, be doctors and whatever. But that's their problem. That's their issue. We need to stop nation building. And that comes back to my, we don't need any more wars for neocon, Trotskyite, communist, wealthy, military, industrial, intelligence complex.
In Congress, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not anti-military. I trace my ancestry back to the American Revolution and the French and Indian Wars. I am not anti-military, but over 1 million Americans have died for these SOBs, and we don't need it. And I'm glad Trump finally got rid of Bolton because he was a war hawk. He wanted to start war with everybody. War. And finally Trump got rid of the guy, so.
In Congress, how would you deal with special interest groups influencing policy?
Oh, it's horrible because I'll give you a case in point, like Debbie Stabenow. Um, she voted against a bill in Congress that would give the American public the right to know if Frankenstein foods are being used and ingredients, and they should be labeled. And she voted against that. Well, she also gets big campaign contributions from Monsanto, Big Pharma, the other lobbying groups. China has a huge lobbying interest. Israel has a huge Chinese lobbying group. They have all kinds of money that they have plied Congress with, and Congress is being bought and sold by these big lobbying groups. You go back to the United States Constitution, the old dead white guys, the founding fathers. The original United States Senate was picked by state legislatures, 50 state legislators. You had to have a majority of the state legislators vote for United States Senate. Hard to find somebody that would be controlled by just a few special interests. They had to have a majority of state legislators, state representatives, state senators, or if you get out west, they only have bicameral, one legislative group, but they had to have majority of them people picking United States senators, 2 from each state. Well, the communists in this country got us into democracy, and where the people picked the United States senators. We got away from a republic and went to democracy. Democracy is 3 wolves and a sheep deciding what they have for lunch. With 3 wolves and a sheep deciding what they have for lunch, you're going to have sheep for lunch. In a republic, you have 3 wolves and a sheep, and lunch is not on the menu. You can pick your lunch, but sheep is not on the menu. So there's rules to a republic. And I think we need to go back to the Constitution, original Constitution, and have our state legislators be elect their United States senators, because that would take the influence of a lot of these big lobbyist groups out of the United States Senate. They're not doing us any good. They're looking out for their special interests. We had a guy named Spence Abrams here, and he was more concerned about getting money from Silicon Valley in California than he was catering to the interests right here in the people in Michigan.
Do you believe humans are significantly contributing to climate change?
Oh, yes. I think climate change is real. I think it's a bunch of BS, that the way they're using it. I think Al Gore was pushing climate change because he had climate credits that he was going to make millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of dollars off of. Help light up his mansion. I guess you can see his mansion from outer space. It's so much energy it uses. But climate change is great. They said the polar bears were going away, but there was a professor in Canada who did a study and said there's actually more polar bears now with the recent climate change that's been going on for tens of thousands of years than there was before. They fired her because she wasn't supposed to say there's more polar bears now with climate change than there was before. So I think we do need to have climate change. I support Donald Trump pulling out of the Paris climate change accord, because it wasn't going to affect China, it wasn't going to affect India, and these are huge polluters. It wasn't going to affect any third world country, because they treated, for once, like Red China, communist China, like a third world country. They're our number 1 rival, economically wise. It was only going to put American workers out of work and hurt American jobs and American manufacturing. And we have better clean air, better clean water, better clean land, a better environment than all these other countries where we're focused on it. And so I think we're doing the right thing. And I think Trump is doing the right thing, because it was a one-sided deal, and it was going to hurt the United States economy and hurt American jobs.
West Michigan is known for its natural resources. Are there additional protections you believe are needed for protecting our waters, our forests, and our farmlands?
Well, as a United States Senator, I would represent all of Michigan. And starting off with, I would have the old and current military bases cleaned up for any toxins, like the one in the UP, which they're still having problems with. We have Selfridge Air National Guard Base north of Detroit. We have Battle Creek National Guard Base. We have Fort Custer, Camp Grayling, and I think they need to be cleaned up. So I think the military should be funded and paid and pushed to clean those funds up. Muskegon County Lake is getting better. White Lake is getting better. Spring Lake has some issues, and I think funding should go in to clean that up. And we need to clean up Lake Michigan. I mean, don't eat the fish in Lake Michigan. Go out there, catch, enjoy yourself, but release, but don't eat them because the fish have health warnings. And I really think that Lake Michigan, where we all get, well, I said most people get their drinking water, needs to be cleaned up and focused on it. I'm really big on clean water and clean air. Also, I also like coal-fired plants with Donald Trump. You said because they can make 100% clean coal burning plants.
We'll save that because we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. All right. So I'll hold you back on this one. Under what dire circumstance or government necessity would you be willing to support a tax increase?
None.
I knew you were going to answer it that way. You're a libertarian.
None.
None.
In fact, I really got ticked off. I will tell you how I really feel about the Republican tax on senior citizen pensions, because the Republicans in the state of Michigan, and this is not a national issue, it was a state issue. There was a war between the leftist socialist MEA and the Republicans for years, going back to Engler. And so the Republicans said, we're going to get you, we're going to tax the pensions of teachers. Well, they taxed the pensions of teachers, retired policemen, retired firemen, and other retirees. A lot of them voted Republicans. So, Michigan Republicans who voted for Snyder's tax, and Snyder was a rhino, for the Republican tax and senior citizen pensions, that was really stupid. And so this stupid act helped the Republicans on the Republican tax and senior citizen pensions. I said that 4 times now, I think. Gave us Gretchen, the little dictator from Hades. Maybe not little, but she's a dictator from Hades.
All right. There are economists concerned with growing wealth disparity as a threat to the country's future economic growth and its prosperity. Do you concur? Do you disagree? Explain your position.
Well, it's existed for 4,000 years. It just comes down to people, and even under socialism and communism, under communist Russia and communist China today, the Communist Party members have special stores, special treatment, special access, special salaries. So communism, socialism isn't the answer, because in Venezuela, the elite live better than the average person. Capitalism is not perfect, and there's people that I just do not be billionaires, like Bloomberg, who's anti-Second Amendment, or Benzo, the one who owns the Washington Post and Amazon, because I think they're irresponsible and trying to take our constitutional rights away because they got billions of dollars. The economy has been good to these people. So, if it's possible, I single them out, tax them at 95% until they got some religion. But, there's no really easy fix. I know a lady, she's passed away, from kindergarten. She existed on $12,000 to $14,000 a year. Then she had Medicaid, and then she had Social Security. And she worked as a secretary or as a personal assistant to some lady for years and years and years. Drove a car. She was totally functional, paid her own bills, lived in a trailer. Nice, super nice person. But she was never going to make more than that. I don't think she was capable of making more than that. And there's some people that, become billionaires. I mean, you can't factor in the way people able to achieve. Some of us are geniuses. Some of us are mediocre. I'm probably in the mediocre line. So, I'm not a genius. In fact, my son, he's 18 and he knows more than I do, he thinks.
My kids are the same way.
Yeah, I know.
You talked about coal earlier. We'll circle back to that. Do you believe the nation should invest in alternative energy or rely on fossil fuels securing energy independence?
Well, all these wind turbines we see in Western Michigan as you go up from Muskegon to Ludington and elsewhere. Some people don't like them. Some people think they're environmental hazards. I've seen studies where all of the material that they sink in the ground and they're there forever. They don't last forever, and they're very expensive to run, and it's expensive electricity. Same way, we don't have a lot of wave action here like you might have in California or other places. So I think alternative and it's solar energy. We don't get a lot of sun here in Michigan. It might work in Florida. So I don't think that alternative energies are the answer. Nuclear, I would say nuclear energy would be fine, except, you got people running the nuclear industry that don't do things in a safe way, and they try and get away as much as possible. And I think we should remove the nuclear material away from Lake Michigan, which I think is still sitting there very close to Lake Michigan down by South Haven, Benton Harbor area. I think, under President Trump, we're doing fracking. I'm not a big fan of fracking, but I think fracking is important. Oil is being pumped out of the ground. We're a number one energy producer. We export energy. It makes America more safe, secure, lowers our energy cost. We have a lot of coal, and I think coal can be burned at 100% clean air. I think the war on coal satisfied the wonks who want to destroy American industry and American jobs. And I support clean fracking that's well monitored for local people's drinking water and environment. I support clean coal being burned, and because we have plenty of coal, and use our natural resources in oil and gas too. All this alternative sources of energy. Okay, under Obama, he supported certain alternative energy entities, and he made a lot of money off of that. So his mansion is around $12 million. You ever seen his mansion? Oh, it's huge.
Can you see that one from outer space too?
Probably. I see the picture of it. It fills a big space. For him and Michelle. Once the kids are out of the nest, I wonder what they're going to do with all this space.
Last question. Are you ready?
Yeah, you can have 5 more questions if you want. I'm primed. I'm ready.
Just this last one, and we'll wrap it up. Here we go. Is there a moral or personal issue you support that is in opposition to your party's ideology? What is it, and why do you strongly adhere to your belief?
Well, you have some people that are very much against my supporting Donald Trump for president. They think big issue with that. Others are tolerant because I'm Max Riekse, Colonel Max Riekse. Some people have issue with that. I don't see it as a moral problem. I think I like Donald Trump. Couldn't stand the SOB before he came down the escalator. I tell people before Donald Trump was President Donald Trump, he was Donald Trump. He hasn't changed, and he's went against the deep state. He's been probably the most libertarian president we've ever had, pro-American certainly, but he's passed legislation not only to lower taxes, and to get less government in our face. He's passed legislation to decriminalize a lot of things that shouldn't have been criminalized and begin with. He's reduced the laws, putting lots of Americans that Sleepy Joe and Clinton put in. So I think that a lot of libertarians see that, and I think we'll see a lot of lessening of the drugs and marijuana issues if Trump is reelected. I think a lot of those won't be federal crimes. They'll be pushed back to states. And I think we'll see less people paying a criminal presence for smoking a flower, smoking a weed. And I don't think, if you take drugs, you can be, severely impact on it. Donald Trump doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't do drugs. Excuse me. And he has some issues with that. But at the same time, I think that he sees this as a personal problem. These people need help. They don't need jail. They don't need prison. And I think Donald Trump and libertarians and Max Riekse, Colonel Max Riekse, is on board with that.
Libertarian candidate, retired Colonel Max Riekse from Fruitport, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thank you.